Are Portugal better without Ronaldo?
Well, I think that it's pretty clear that Ronaldo is still an incredible finisher of a football. So we saw a brace that he got against Uzbekistan. Both of those finishes were really, really nice. And I think the Portuguese team will realise that if they can get Ronaldo into those sorts of goal-scoring situations, then there's no one better to have in those situations. But the problem is that actually I think there's potentially mobility issues coming through, which means that he's finding it harder to get into those kind of situations. Against Uzbekistan, because Portugal were able to control the game, they were able to force Uzbekistan into a smaller area of the pitch, and that meant that there was less for Ronaldo to do. But I think what's happening in other games against better sides is the pitch becomes much bigger. You're having to play end-to-end more, and that means that the mobility issues that I think are there with Ronaldo now that he's towards the end of his career are really starting to show.
Because obviously the criticism would be Uzbekistan are not a strong World Cup team. That's why Ronaldo's found it easier to score against them.
Yeah, and I think as soon as the spaces become bigger, what ends up happening is that Ronaldo gets a bit disconnected from the rest of the team. And so it can then feel almost as though Portugal are playing with a player less. So I've got Portugal's game with Colombia on the board here. Colombia playing from left to right. They're in a build-up phase. And in this situation, we've got Ronaldo doing exactly what you would expect a forward to do. He's blocking the passing lane between the two centre-backs, forcing the Colombia build-up on a certain side of the pitch. This is all fine. So this is good. But the problem is that a number of different things happen. So Colombia are going to build up on the right-hand side of the pitch. And actually what they're going to do is they're just going to use this triangle and play it through the Portuguese players quite comfortably, it turns out. Now, in this situation, once the ball comes across to the Colombian fullback, what you would expect to happen here is pressure to be put onto this centre-back to stop that ball from being an out ball again. And there's two different ways you could do that. One would be that the forward would press across onto the centre-back and the midfielder would stay on the Colombian pivot. The other option is that the striker could drop onto the pivot and the midfielder step up. Actually, what ends up happening is that the midfielder has to do both of those jobs. They have to jump up onto the centre-back, then drop onto the pivot. And the result is that when the ball is played around that triangle, as we saw it before, it's played to a centre-back who's now completely free. There's no pressure on him whatsoever. Ronaldo is still in this passing lane between the two centre-backs. And you might say, well, you know, he's still doing his job here, right? He's blocking that pass to the centre-back. But actually, there's a really nice out ball for Colombia here because they just bounce it off the goalkeeper into the Colombian centre-back's feet. He's under no pressure whatsoever because the rest of the team have had to fill in for Ronaldo over on the other side of the pitch. And we end up with this scenario where now the centre-back and the pivot have the ball. Ronaldo is now out of commission altogether. And what you end up with actually in the playing surface that's visible here is you've got 10 outfield players for Colombia against 9 outfield players for Portugal. So when I'm talking about disconnects between Ronaldo and the rest of his team, this is quite a nice example.
That's what you mean.
Yeah.
Although to play devil's advocate, I could say that there are other teams at this World Cup and beyond the World Cup that have strikers who don't really defend, and the teams and the fans don't mind that much because they score so many goals. Is this not the case for Ronaldo?
Well, yeah, I mean, Vinicius Jr. is a great example of that, right? We've already done videos where we look at the way that he is engaging in the front line of the press, and actually is quite easy for him to bypass. And the argument is that, well, yes, he isn't putting up a huge amount of resistance in that first line of defence, but if his teammates are able to win the ball back, he's in a really nice attacking position. We talk about rest defence, which is the position of your defenders when you're attacking. You could talk about rest attack, which is the position of your attackers when you win the ball back after defending. And because he's in these really nice positions, he is really accessible for Brazil, and so they generate a lot of attacking movements through just having him in really advanced positions. The problem is Ronaldo isn't having that same impact in the moments when Portugal are able to generate these kind of attacking moments. So I've got a few sequences to show you. So here's a nice example. Ronaldo in behind the two centre-backs for Colombia here. The goalkeeper has got the ball, he's just won it back. Colombia have just had a direct attack. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about rest attack positions. Now Portugal have gone from defending to attacking, and they've got forwards in actually quite nice position to cause Colombia problems here. The goalkeeper is going to throw the ball out directly to the midfielder here. I think that's Bruno Fernandes, in a lot of space. And what we can see here is Fernandes is going to find it down the line into the winger. And in these sorts of situations, then you would expect a transition attack in the other direction. I've noted Ronaldo's body position here because what he's doing is he's facing back down the field. What you would probably expect a player who's going to have a dangerous transition attack here would be to be ready to make that run in behind, because then if you're doing that, you're going to pull both of your centre-backs with you. Actually, what we see happening is the two centre-backs can drop off. Ronaldo is still not ready to make that turn and run and attack the space in behind the centre-backs. And the ball is already here with his teammate. And so actually by the time the attack is advanced a little bit further, you can see that Colombian back line, despite the fact it was under a huge amount of pressure, is actually able to retain its integrity, and there's no pressure being put on Davinson Sanchez here by Ronaldo. Now, again, you could make the argument that what's happening here is that Ronaldo is holding up in order to receive the cutback.
Yeah.
Again, I think that the problem here is that usually what you would expect is for him to make that run, drag the defence out of the way and open up space for his teammate. And also, this is a fairly risky pass by the time the Colombian midfielder comes across as well. I've got another example of a similar kind of attack happening from Ronaldo. Again, in certain situations, because of the large distances we talked about, when his team are building up to receive the ball, because he is often in that really advanced position, he would have to play as a sort of out-and-out striker, right? So receive the ball from long balls, bring it down and bring his teammates into play.
Yeah.
That's not really his game. And so actually what we're seeing him do quite a bit in this tournament is dropping in to try and receive the ball and then having to make up space to get forward. But because of that lack of mobility, he isn't getting forward. So here's another example, very similar to the last one, where actually that space is open for Portugal to exploit. The ball is played into that space. And we can see here now that transition has been triggered and Ronaldo still hasn't started to move to try and put pressure on that back line. He's still walking. Actually, at this point, you've now got Portugal effectively in behind that back line. Again, Ronaldo is still like jogging at this point. He's not going to get anywhere near this front line. If he could get into this space here, this centre-back would be in a lot of trouble. He's got a big space to defend and Ronaldo could either get in behind or again drop off to receive the ball. And actually, we can see that he's still nowhere near in connection with his teammate here, playing as the striker when he cuts back inside. The ball eventually is played into this area, but because he's so far off the play, it's actually 3 Colombian players who are able to converge on the ball there and win it back. Because these distances are so big, in the one hand, as a striker, he's not able to do a lot of the hold-up stuff, so he has to drop in and help out. But at the same time, he has to get forward to help out if they attack in a transitional way, which is this Portugal team is designed to do. So it always just feels like he's not quite making the right connections that you want your striker to make in this kind of gameplay.
Looking at it this way also makes it feel like it is a system problem rather than an individual problem, because if you go back to the slide where you show that originally where he's blocking the passing lane between the two centre-backs, and then you show that it's the advanced midfielder who's having to do all of the work, right? Ronaldo here is in a position where if Portugal win the ball back, he's going to score. And that's his job, that's what he would think, right? If you go to the next example, where you see that he's not had the speed to move forwards in the transition as fast, and you point out already that he holds off and that he actually is in space by the time, on the edge of the box, by the time that the ball is all the way up there. If he could be found, he's in the best position to score a goal far away from defenders, which is what he's supposed to do. But that doesn't suit what any of the rest of the team are doing, right? So it makes it feel like it's more of a team problem than a him problem.
I think it's a combination of both, because I think what we're seeing with, for example, Vinicius Jr. is you can say that there are big weaknesses there out of possession. Brazil are trying to find ways of solving those problems. And they've changed their system since the beginning of the tournament in order to lessen some of the out of possession problems. The issue, I think, with Ronaldo is that they're trying to play him in a system where he's expected to be an incredibly mobile striker, and he doesn't have the mobility to necessarily be able to do that.
It's an age thing, right?
It's an age thing.
Do you think there's a world where in the dressing room he's saying, no, I can do it, I can still do it, I can do it?
Yeah, but I think it's worth noting that it's not just the big distances here that are an issue. I think the smallish distances are an issue as well. So I've got an example here of, again, a Portugal attack where he's playing off the last line, as you would expect a striker to do. But you can see that he's really having to push that line as far as he can, because he knows that his turn of pace over a small distance isn't enough to actually cause problems to some of these really elite centre-backs, right? So in this instance, I quite like this example, because what's going to happen is the ball is going to come through to this player here, and Ronaldo is going to make the run in behind. What we can see is when the ball arrives at the feet of, I think this is Joao Felix, you can see that he is making that run directly because he knows he's got to get moving, because if he doesn't have the speed up, then these centre-backs are going to catch him. Actually, if you watch the centre-back here, what you see him doing is holding his run. So he slightly decelerates, and he's running backwards at first, and then he curves his run back inside to play the offside line, and he's able to do that because he has the confidence that even if Ronaldo beats the offside trap, he will still be able to catch him up. Now, in this instance, when the pass is played, Ronaldo is offside. And we can see that he gets the immediate advantage of having the momentum to get forward. And the centre-back loses his momentum and so has a big distance to actually catch up. But actually, if you look at the time when Ronaldo takes the shot, the centre-back has caught him up. And in this instance, this is not actually a great shooting position. The reason why he's shooting here is because he knows the centre-back is going to catch him up. If the centre-back isn't able to catch him up, if he has a bit more pace, he's just going to run directly towards the goal and not actually have to deal with the centre-back at all. So I think a lot of this does just come down to the physical capabilities have just dropped off a little bit. And as a result, it means that Portugal, because they're trying to play him in a certain way, they're just losing out.
It's these kind of moments that always remind me of Gary Neville saying that he had that one match where he realised he was done. He couldn't keep up anymore, and he had to retire. But Ronaldo doesn't really feel like that kind of character.
Doesn't seem that way, and he's got lots of records still to break. So yeah, I think the overall thing is that Portugal are putting themselves at a disadvantage. Now, yes, if they played someone instead of Ronaldo, that player probably wouldn't be anywhere near the ceiling that Ronaldo has had in his career. But the big question is whether or not actually adding a different kind of younger profile into that slot, whether or not a lot of these problems would just go away, and then suddenly you're seeing Portugal getting the advantages.
So yes, Portugal are worse with Ronaldo.
Yes.